We are obviously very lucky to have. People say these days that the kind of Scottish Frenchman, the adopted Frenchman, is Johnny Beattie. And as great as he is, we obviously have our very own Scottish rugby fan who eulogises over French rugby. Rob, so give us your unique, slightly partisan take on the events of Friday, where obviously France came past Scotland to secure their Six Nations crown.
Saturday,
What did I say? Sunday,
Friday, which
Friday.
also
Oh,
happened, to be fair.
it
But I
did.
assume
Yeah,
you want to talk
that
about
was
the
a hell
main
of a.
one rather than the
I
Six
want to talk.
Nations
I
under
want to
20s
talk
first.
about the. I want to talk about the full noise. Stade de
Well, I
France.
would. My first take in the comparison to Johnny Beattie is I wish I looked as young as he did, as he does. And he's probably got like 7 or 8 years on me. And he looks so fresh. And I don't. It's amazing what living in the south of France, kind of on a one big jolly around the south of France watching rugby can do to you versus going to an office in the middle of London, well, not even the middle of London, in a concrete hellhole like Hammersmith. Um, yeah, well, how the other half live. But on a more serious note, no, I'm wearing my Breve hoodie. Do you know why this was a Scotland supporting thing, Richard? You probably saw it. Some of the responses.
I can only guess that. I know you're a big fan of Sam Johnson, who currently is playing at Breve, but I don't know if there's anything deeper than that.
No, Gregor Townsend played at Breve.
Did he? I know he played at Cast, didn't he?
He played at Cast. I was actually wearing my Cast t-shirt underneath. But yeah, he played at Breve, so
Oh,
I
okay.
thought that would be a little nod to Gregor. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of almost more interested to know your views on this because I found myself, and I remember thinking it last year, kind of as because it was the first time that we'd done Rosbeefs and just started it. And I remember with the non-try at the end at Murrayfield being absolutely livid and being quite surprised at how partisan I still was for Scotland, given how much I love this French team. And I was a very angry man on Saturday evening. I was raging about some of the injustices of Matthew Carley on the Scotland team. But I also don't know. I think so much of this is around Finn Russell, and I just I kind of like the guys that are kind of the fool guys for Scotland are also the heroes. But as soon as they do something wrong, they just get pilloried. And I think I thought Jamie Ritchie was phenomenal, and yet Matt Carley seemed intent on pinging him off the park. Um, but yeah, don't know. I feel like there quite a lot of Scotland players outplayed their kind of opposite man. Russell being a key one. Albeit I thought Entomac defended pretty well, but I thought some of his stuff in attack was just bad. Certainly first half, Russell completely outplayed him. And I thought it's weird because like Richie and Francois Cross is like they're the kind of corresponding people, and everyone knows that Francois Cross is great, but you never see his work. He does the unseen work, whereas Richie is doing the unseen work, but very much being seen. And yet, I'd say they both had a pretty good game. But um,
Hmm. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Cross was very good. I felt. I don't know if I feel quite strongly about like Entomac's performance in the first half. I think the first half was a proper spectacle. It was great fun, and there's some serious rugby. Um, the it was one of those games. It's so easy to say with hindsight, but particularly with the disallowed try for Scotland before half time.
oh,
But like it just never it just never felt as good as some of the stuff they were stringing together was that they were ever going to win that game. And
it
maybe
kind of
that's
felt
just the
inevitable that France was going to win, wasn't it?
yeah, 100%. Um, and I think France were excellent. Moefana had a fabulous game, didn't he? He was man of the match. I thought the
Quite
bench
rightly.
again was excellent and similar to last week, and not kind of universally so. But for France, I think Mayafo off the bench feels like I really like it for France. It
Yeah,
feels just like you kind of amplify and turn up his potential impact. And then whilst, I think
I
obviously
thought he was
Jegu,
relatively quiet.
I still think he has so many involvements for a second row when he comes
Mm.
on. That they like he really gets in the game, which you would do when you're 3 tons and 6 foot 100, with great hands as well. But I think quite impressive was obviously we spoke about Oscar Jegu, who had a phenomenal game the week before. He was a little bit quieter this time round, but it was dovetailed by, Jelonch was really powerful this week when he was a little bit quieter. Cyril Bay I thought was great, having again been a little bit muted last week, certainly by
Yeah.
comparison to some of the guys who came off. So yeah, look, I think it was fairly deserved. I would I maybe I wasn't watching intently enough because I didn't have a huge amount of skin in the game, but the, the Scotland sort of baffled me ever so slightly in their seeming ease with which they often broke through on first phase and then just didn't quite have seen couldn't penetrate the sort of second defensive line afterwards, particularly in the second half.
Mm.
Which is probably testament to France's defence. I did think, in fairness to Scotland as well, both the Fergusons were excellent.
Yeah.
They were outstanding, and
Zander
actually,
Fagerson played the
even
full. Zander Fagerson played the full 80, which is
he's done similar, hasn't he? Or he's
I
been
think he
playing
played
like
like 78
70.
last week. Yeah. I saw
Yeah,
a stat today and it was something like if you the top five, if you combined carries with tackles, I think. And it was like Jack Morgan, Rory Darge, Zander Fagerson, someone else. I assume it was like Doris or something like that, or Cross maybe, and then Matt Fagerson. But it's like the fact that
yeah,
you've got like all these back rowers and a tight head prop in there is just it's phenomenal. Like, and also I guess kind of we were talking before, like kind of you could compare and contrast the kind of opposite men. I think Zander Fagerson compare him to like what he's up against, and he's got two blokes that are essentially playing half a game each, and he's playing the full game. Winnie Antonio did get a breakdown jackal turnover, didn't he, in the
yeah. I saw
first half?
that. Yeah, yeah, quite early.
But like Aldegheri is just like the kind of look at the output from Zander Fagerson compared to Dorian Aldegheri, even though he's fresh in that second half. And Zander Fagerson in like the 70th minute, he like does like 2 carries in the space of 30 seconds. It's just like, Jesus, that is phenomenal for a man that has been scrummaging against Jean-Baptiste Gros and Cyril Bay for 70 minutes.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
was great,
it's a
and they
kind of level, it's
actually.
type of player that France don't produce. It's a very different, two very different ways of doing the tight head prop, doing your tight head props, isn't it? You've kind of got two lumps who are quite hard to shift, or you've got like a really technical work rate guy
Hmm.
who gets absolutely everything out of the raw materials he's got.
Yeah, and then the other type, the French tight head prop, is the one who appears to struggle in the scrum, but is more fun and more destructive than anyone else, like ball in hand.
Yeah,
There's somewhere in the middle of those. There's a hybrid of like a. There's still probably a little bit of a tiny area of weakness, isn't it? Unless they can get like Colom and Tatafu actually scrummaging big. Although Tatafu's been injured, isn't he? So that's a bit
yeah,
unfair.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, Scotland gave pretty good. Blair Kinghorn of Toulouse was magnificent as well.
I think the Scottish. I think it was interesting because I actually kind of found myself, other than the Fergusons, it was kind of the Scottish players or players that have played. Sorry, the French-based Scotland players that are currently there, have been there, or are going
Or
there.
going there.
Yeah, that were all
Yeah,
the best players. Like Kinghorn was phenomenal.
Richie
Thought,
Kinghorn Russell.
yeah, Ben White. I thought Ben White, like
He was great, wasn't he? He was
he
good.
is, he was like Luku. I think if you went pure head to head, I think Luku probably nudges it on the day because his box kicking was phenomenal. It was like second highest tackler or something ridiculous.
The distance on some of his box kicks
Yeah,
are
yeah.
absolutely obscene, Luku.
But I think again, it was kind of bit like with Ferguson. Like you saw when White goes off, like he played until like 66 minutes. When as soon as he goes off, like they just look a little bit
Yeah,
not as good.
yeah.
I just thought the engine, like the amount of the shift he put in, and he obviously does that like, cover back on the kick ahead from Luku, and it's mad to think. I think I put a tweet out that was something like, if you want to know how good the top 14 is, Ben White is lucky to get 15, 20 minutes at the end of a game,
Mm.
like every week, and
Yeah,
look how good he is. It's just mad. But yeah, and
yeah.
I think also just on the French-based Scottish players. I was thinking as I was kind of framing that, I was like, Russell's going back, isn't he? He's going back at some point. Ben
Yeah,
Russell is he's not ending
to
his career
where?
in
Do you think
Bath.
it'll where do you think?
To lose.
Do you
Imagine.
reckon?
No, it'll be like so no, I wouldn't be surprised if he went back to Racing, like because
Possibly.
Faz will go, and then I don't know. I just think he'll go back. Like it feels like he should. Especially if like he doesn't make the Lions tour. Like if he's the best fly half in the world. I don't care what
Mark,
anyone says. He's the best fly half in the world.
best
And
fly half in the world, do you think?
well, who's better? Who's better? Richie
Mwanga?
Mwanga doesn't count because he's not play. He doesn't play international rugby.
What well, he does, doesn't he? But he's
No, he
not at
hasn't
the
played.
moment.
Yeah, I know what you mean. But like
Yeah,
currently playing any sort of international rugby, I just think he's the best fly half.
yeah, maybe.
And the fact
Maybe.
that people are like, oh, maybe you'd play Marcus Smith for Lions. Sorry, I did say on Twitter that we weren't going to talk about Lions on this, but yeah, absolutely raging. I
Yeah,
just think it must be so tough being like the guy that you're basically for your team to win, you have to play really, really well. And as soon as you make a mistake, everyone's like, "Oh, well, that's just the problem you have with this guy. Like he's rubbish." And it's just like,
yeah. There's also a bloke who has to extend himself. And then obviously the Scottish backline is very strong, isn't it? But for years it hasn't been, and he has been
yeah,
out on a limb. And a lot of Scotland's I don't mean this to be aggy or patronising, their kind of perceived success in at least the sense that they've
yeah,
had some big scalps and played some really good rugby has largely been pretty much down to Finn Russell.
yeah.
And people are naturally a bit skeptical of anyone who does things slightly differently, aren't they?
Yeah. I think
Quick
just generally
one.
like the bench just I've kind of touched on it, but like everyone kind of knew beforehand that Scotland don't really have the depth, especially with a couple of injuries like Scott Cummins not being there, for example, who I think is a really key cog when you're trying to defend the
Yeah,
maul. Like he's one of the best maul defenders. Like to not have those guys, and you'll bring it. Like, I genuinely never heard of one of the blokes, Marshall Sykes. I genuinely never heard of him. And I've only really heard of Ewan Johnson because I know he plays in France. Like,
yeah,
um, just the compared to Miafu, Jelonch, like that
yeah,
was always it was always gonna be the difference. And there was a kind of period, wasn't there, when those guys first came on of like 10 minutes where that was the period that Scotland ran away with it.
yeah.
Sorry, France ran away with it.
Agreed. I don't want a breakdown of pernickety technical, pedantic decisions from Matthew Carley, but I am interested in your view on the Pieto Malvaca Ben White incident, which few people have been not hugely impressed by in terms of both the decision and the actions of our man Malvaca. Thoughts?
Can I shock you?
Yes, you
I have
can.
absolutely no problem with any of it.
No problem with any of it.
No, I
Explain.
think Matthew Carley handled it really well, like on the field. I think it probably is a yellow because the force is. I think the official ruling was the force was not high, or danger element of danger was not high. I think that's fine. I think I think the fact that Ramos pushes Ben White over probably doesn't help the situation, and that probably what sparks it. And I think Malvaca is kind of a bit pissed off, and I don't think he intentionally headbutts him. I think he's just like lunging towards him, and his head
Hmm.
makes contact with head, and like it happens. I think Ben Kaiser was kind of a bit like, there's nothing in that really. Like I just hope he doesn't get a red card for that, and I think I'm fine with it. I think I'm fine
Uh,
with it all round. How about you?
I think it's probably a red card.
Really?
I don't think it's like the most heinous thing I've ever seen. And it all kind of
Letter of
it's
the
a
law.
Well, I just think, well, it's the problem with the kind of ruling for me is that it says it's not like a tackle situation, is it? So
No.
the danger element doesn't really come into it because you can't stand there. Like if two hookers come together in a scrum pops up and one of them gives a little nudge to anyone, that's always been perceived as a red card. And I think in that situation, I think he's a bit lucky. I don't think there's anything like wild in it, but I do think he's lost his head a bit, and I don't think he could have had any complaints if he did get gone. Um, but yeah, it's yeah, it was a bit of a strange one. I just think the whole process, conversation all the time, the whole process around red cards and things feels like a proper mess at the moment.
Yeah, the
Um,
bunker doesn't help, does it?
it's just yeah, and that to me is not like the reason. I can see why maybe there wasn't too much in it, but if it's a red, if you make accidental contact standing up in a tackle, I think it's probably a red if you're off the ball and go towards. At first, I was like, "There's nothing there." He's basically tripped over,
Yeah.
but I think there was a bit more. I did notice the guy trying to pull White off the floor was his teammate at Toulon,
Yeah.
Jean Baptiste
Did see
Gross. I
that.
don't know if he was like, "Oh fuck, I can see it's about to
Yeah.
get PA-toed here," but yeah, there we go.
I
These
thought
things happen.
the one that should have been more was there's a tip tackle from the LBRA on Russell where because I've literally just watched this like or throughout on my way home and he goes above the horizontal and it's like oh no I don't think he
Yeah,
goes above the horizontal it's a dominant hit it's like mm,
yeah, they're the things that are
like
frustrating,
I've
right?
seen
Because
like it's pretty much it's not that dissimilar to like
it's
the
not.
Van Clerk Sam Warburton one from back in the day like
Yeah, and
yeah
it wasn't like the landing wasn't that dangerous, but he was a bit above the horizontal.
and
So
he did drive him downwards a little
when
bit
you say what like yeah, it's stuff like that that's annoying, right? When like well he is because you can just see it. Like it's not.
lands on his head slash neck slash shoulder area.
There we
Yeah.
go. But
Well,
France,
at least I'm not bitter about Scotland losing to
no, there
what
you
was
go.
potentially the best. The best, I reckon that's the best Six Nations win or Six Nations Championship win without a Grand Slam. Because if like
I couldn't
I know, but it's
I
like they've
couldn't know what to
broken like
compare
try
it to.
scoring records.
Yeah,
They've broken like I think England 2001 is like one that's seen as like a don't think they won the Grand Slam that year. But they've broken like try scoring records. If you think that on another day that could have easily been 40 points to 17 or something rather than like 25-26 in the England game, like that we could have been looking at like 6 wins, like biggest smallest margin being like 14 points or something like that. Like they were just utterly dominant in quite a lot of the games. The only one that well, I'd say they were ultimately dominant in the England game as well, the one they lost. Like
first half they were. Yeah.
yeah,
All right then. Give us. I think we did this after the autumn internationals. I don't think anyone doubts that France deserved winners, but within that, been a few interesting folk involved, and selections have been rife in discussion. Winners and losers. We're going to go full like basic tabloid journalism here.
I
Not
think
going to do
my
marks out of 10, but winners and losers in this
I think
France
my
side.
number one winner is the same as my number one from the autumn, which would be Louis Bielbiaré,
Yeah,
because he is now a bona fide. He went from like this guy's really cool, exciting, like the most exciting young player on the planet to he's now
superstar.
gone from that to global superstar.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, that's my first winner.
very good. I'm going to go for his Bordeaux teammate, Maxime Lucu,
Oh yeah, nice.
who
Okay.
was fantastic. Was probably, I think, France's best player in their win against Ireland. He was, yeah, I think he's been awesome given some of the travails he's had. And I saw actually something he was, apparently was genuinely struggling after last year's Six Nations and considering his future in the game and stuff like that.
Oh
Such was
wow.
his feeling of kind of disappointment after that. So yeah, top man, hell of a player. Um, yeah, just a
Yeah, it's a
great
nice,
bloke.
nice redemption, that, isn't it? Also, still only lost one game for France, which is, I think, is
It's
the Marseille game,
wild. Yeah.
the Ireland loss.
Mm.
Well, I thought you were going to go for the other player that I thought was the best player on the pitch against Ireland and was named the best player on the pitch against Scotland, and Yoram Moefana, who has had a coming of age tournament, and I think he could well end up being the official player of the tournament. Um, because he was just exceptional in he was so good in every single game. Like he was minimum 8 out of 10 in each game.
Yeah, nice. He was excellent, particularly at the back end. I think it was maybe a tiny bit quieter at the start. One thing I would say for Moefana and Luku to an extent, it's been a bit of a tournament actually for guys who across multiple teams who have maybe not set the world alight in their first. Not anyone who's had any real problems or hiccups, but look at the sort of England teams. The two
Ben
of the big
Curry,
winners, Ben Curry. I know he's played 50 games, but Will
Will
Stewart.
Stewart, yeah.
Um, yeah, I think there's a real propensity to for people to go, oh, not the whole kind of Eddie Jones test match animal thing.
Yeah.
And after 5 games, going that hasn't got it, and actually, it's a little bit more complex than that. And yeah, Moefana is a brilliant example. Um, we love him already. I'm going to go Jean-Baptiste Gross, not
Yeah.
just because he's a great player, really talented all-round prop, but he is possibly challenging Maxime Lucu for the best-looking bald rugby player in France. Just a suave fella. So
Yeah.
extra point for that.
I think he was in our winners and losers in the autumn as well. I think another player who was on the edge of that, but also is definite winner from the Six Nations, Mikel Guillard. So another player we love, and another player who looks really good off the field as well. But I think to keep Miafu out the side is no mean feat, and I
Yeah,
think kind of makes a little bit of a mockery of Rumat playing at the
yeah,
start of the tournament, because like both sides of the ball just so physical is clearly what they needed.
yeah. Final winner. I was gonna go. I was gonna say to irritate you. I was gonna go Roman Entamac, but I'll say Oscar Jegu,
Yeah,
who I thought of the young, that kind of pack of 4 or 5 young back rows. I felt he was maybe towards the back of that, and that still could be borne out, but can't say he hasn't taken his chance. He's been excellent. I think that Ireland performance will live long in the memory.
yeah, that could be a quite a moment in time that.
Rob, we're a bit limited on the clock here. I don't want to sour those celebratory discussions by going too deep into the losers. So
Okay.
give me your. Do you want to do three? Have you got 3 losers?
I
Actually,
haven't really.
scraping the barrel a little bit.
Yeah, I haven't really thought about it. Well, one of my losers is again one of the losers from the autumn, Mathieu Jalibert. Like,
Yeah,
unfortunately, like I don't know. I can't see him getting a game. I mean, I said
no,
that. I think I said that before, but I can't see him getting too many more chances, which is a real shame for a player of that talent. If he was English, you'd say, "Oh, just go off to France and earn a load of money." But he's
yeah,
already there.
yeah. And play for Moana Pacifica with RD Surveyor, something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was struggling a bit on this because I think they were pretty good throughout. And losers maybe a bit strong, but uh, gone for Oradu
yeah,
just off the basis of I would say of the new guys who've come in, he maybe felt like the one who didn't really make an impact, had a bit of a nightmare 10 minutes against England, and
yeah,
then in that much vaunted 7-1 bench, got about 9 minutes in the
yeah.
last two games.
Yeah.
Young player, obviously immense potential, but yeah, that was my slightly far-fetched loser.
I saw a few comments online last week that that were suggesting that he was only getting picked because his dad was mates with Fabien Galtier from when they played together at Stade Francais, and that was why he was getting picked. It cropped up quite a lot, like people
Wow.
saying like, "Oh, his dad's mates with Galtier." Um,
Blimey.
I would
Well,
say
it,
some
it
not.
wouldn't be the first time there's been a bit of nepotism in French rugby. So
Yeah. Not necessarily a loser, but someone whose stock has fallen perhaps slightly would be Nolan Le Garrick, I think.
yeah, yeah, that's fair. Stock has fallen is a better way of putting it, I think, than
Yeah.
loser per se.
Given that he
Uh,
could have been, this time last year, if you said that he'd be third choice and Luku would be the man tearing it up, you'd be hard pressed to believe that.
yeah, agreed. Alrighty, Six Nations is done for another year. France will next be in action. There's a kind of probables type game, isn't there, at Twickenham in June, I think it is, against like an
Yeah.
England 15.
Yeah.
And I'm
That we have no
guessing,
idea who's going to be eligible
yeah, yeah,
yeah, what the criteria will be or anything like that.
should be fun though. You can mark your words, as I always say. Arthur Vincent will be there, probably
Yeah.
skippering the side.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then it's off to New Zealand in the summer, which, as I was saying just before we came on air, apparently Roman Entamac has made clear his desire to tour, which I imagine the Toulouse management might have something to say about. But I've got to say, like, I can totally get, like, why wouldn't you? I know obviously the season's brutal, but as a rugby player at the highest level, you want to be on that tour, wouldn't you? Like, if you
I
can
think
sneak it.
top 14 finals the last weekend of June, I think, because I was looking at this earlier. And then it's like 5th, 12th, and 19th of July is the tour. So if you think like the Lions, like Blair Kinghorn will be trying to get out and Jack Willis will be
Yeah,
trying to get out to Australia for the same similar sort of time span. And it's
yeah,
like similar sort of rarity these days. France
yeah,
playing in New Zealand. Like
yeah, of course it is.